Hi, Cheyenne.
Hi.
Thank you for your time today. So before we get into our topics, I do want to hit you with an icebreaker.
Okay.
What's one natural hair product that you are currently obsessed with?
So it would have to be the Cream of Nature line, especially like mixed in with the argan oil, maybe sunflower if you feel a little spicy.
Special.
You have to do it, sometimes just to switch it up. But I have very thick, coarse hair that I love truly.
Right.
But sometimes managing that, like wanting to do a twist out or wanting to do a wash and go, it takes a product that really can get my hair back to like this soft, moist condition, especially because my hair doesn't like moisture, it kind of like rejects it.
Okay.
So that helps a lot, and I'll actually add in, them combs that kind of like when you comb, it flails out. I can't think of the name, but it's like I call it a breakaway comb. That helps so much right now with detangling my hair.
Okay.
So yeah, argan oil, Cream of Nature line, I use it.
Sometimes sunflower.
Sometimes sunflower, just to switch it up a bit.
Okay, I like that. Gotta try that out.
I'm telling you, it works.
So Cheyenne, can you please share with us a little bit about your background and some of the unwanted comments that played into your childhood, your teen years, or your adulthood?
So being someone even now, right, I'm pretty tall. We can see that hopefully like from my legs. I have big hair and it was a lot bigger when I was a kid. I cut it off multiple times and I have a really, what I've been told, powerful voice. Again, I can only hear it inside my head. So
Right.
my version of what my voice sounds like is a little bit different than everyone else's. So a lot of the comments I received was essentially like, you are too much. Like, you're tall, you have big hair, you're black, and then like you have the audacity to be loud. Like
Yeah.
people would always say, we hear you before we see you. When it comes to the height, the aspect that I feel like a lot of people fell in love with the idea of being tall, but they don't think about even still having trouble finding clothes, the aspect of people being very intimidated by me, even when it comes to a lot of business. Like when I stand there and talk to people, I've often always hear people say, I thought you were mean. And it's like, you're just such a presence, right? From the tallness. I've had people actually not want to stand next to me because I make them feel so small. And it's like, I tell people I'm probably the goofiest, lovable person that you've ever seen, but something as simple to me as just, I have a tall family. I'm just a tall person. It's just a height really makes people say like, stay away.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to complexion, right? So I have, a very wide range in my family, both my mom and my dad's side. People who are, like my brother, where he could honestly pass as being white. He has freckles and green eyes.
Oh, wow.
To the point where like when people would see my brother, like I'd be like, oh, my brother's coming. They'd be like, where is he? I'm like, right there. And they're like, oh, the white guy? And I'm like, he's not white. And then on the other side, you see my sister who's very dark. And I'd be like, oh, I have a sister.
Yeah.
Where is she? Right there. Isn't she adopted? And it's like,
Oh, wow.
no, y'all, we all look the exact same. We're just all different complexions. So hearing maybe sometimes when it comes to certain family members or even certain peoples in my community, it's like, you're a house slave, or why aren't you dark enough? Or why didn't you get these type of features? And, even going back to my hair, really loving my hair right now, because I had to realize how to do my hair for me and not try to pretend that I had these other attributes. And, in the question of how does that look in my adulthood, it really is still me unpacking a lot of those nuances and conversations that do hurt, because the idea that like, hey, why can't I have your feature?
Right.
Or hey, why do I have to be so tall and I can't just go to the mall and find clothing?
Right,
Or it's like, why do I have to be so thin to the point where I was told by someone, you're pretty and you're beautiful, but you'll never be Essence Beauty or Jet Beauty beautiful. Like they were like, you'll never be in those magazines. And when I was a kid, I didn't know what that meant because I'm a child. And then when I got older and I looked at those magazines, I was like, oh, you're saying like, you're not black. Like you don't have this black beauty to be in black media and to be in black magazines, which to this day it still kind of hurts that people thought that of me.
Diving a bit more back into your family's history and your background as far as skin tone and appearance goes, you did mention how your brother is on the lighter end of the spectrum, whereas your sister is on the darker end of the spectrum, and you fall in the middle of that. So talking about being black enough, what exactly do you think that means, or how does that translate to you?
So I think to talk from the point of like what it was like maybe growing up and really finding that. So like, obviously, to your point, me and my siblings are very much on this whole spectrum of what it means to be black as far as our complexion and the features we carry, because our parents and our family is. Like my grandfather on my dad's side had green eyes and white skin, to the point when, even when he passed away, people were like, oh, he wasn't white? And we're like, no, he was black. And it's like, they're like, oh, we didn't know, right? So it's like to have like an older brother that has like freckles and green eyes, and then like a little sister who has hair like that's really big curls and rich dark skin with red undertones. You know, people genuinely thought we adopted her. Like when I was a kid and I'm like, oh, I'm having a baby sister, and they saw her, they're like, where'd you get her from? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like what?
You just bought her from the store.
Yeah, like we just bought her, and they're like, no, she's definitely from like Jamaica, or like you adopted her from Ethiopia or something. And then it's like my brother would come into the room, and it's like, well, who's he? And it's like, the funny part to me always in my family would be, we all have the same bone structure. So I think the idea of like, what does it mean to be black enough for me growing up was, it always was, no matter what crowd I was in, it was either you're too less, you're too much, it's not enough, you're missing the mark. You know, even my hair, because of my complexion, people would say, oh, you're so Afrocentric. And I'm like, I'm black. Like, what does Afrocentric even mean? Like,
in a way, trying to dress it up a little bit.
Trying to dress it up because to them, the color of my skin should have not been the hair texture that I have.
Right. And even speaking of your natural hair, and I know you mentioned that you're from mainly a suburban white area, were there any experiences that you dealt with as far as being pushed away from positions or just situations where your hair wasn't accepted, or just like the texture of it, where you just were not told that this was something that you should embrace?
So definitely when it came to me experimenting with head wraps, right? It was literally told to my face, you look like a slave. And I was like, that's a little much. That's a little, I feel like that was like, I don't know why we said it like that. And then again, the real gag, because I always love a good gag, is nowadays, right? Head wraps are a thing. Like if you were to see the way I dress, some people plan outfits around their bags and their shoes. I plan it around my head wrap.
Yes.
And I will look like someone's rich auntie. My friends are like, you look like you from a whole island. I said, and period. Like, and why? Because I love myself. I have head wraps in every color. So I would say I had an experience of being in white suburbia where it's like people were almost amazed by my hair. So I've definitely had my hair touched, especially when I'm sitting down. And one specific memory I have is when I was working at a grocery store and I was checking this lady out. And you know, people just giving unsolicited opinions and just talking when they should keep thoughts internally. I like the phrase, you know, that could have been a draft. You could have kept that thought in your draft. In the drafts. She looked at me and said, I love your hair. I had box braids at the time. And I was like, oh, thank you. You know, my mistake. I thought it was going to be a 1-2 conversation. It wasn't. She had more.
Of course.
And she was like, you know, I love your hair. I said, thank you. And she's like, but isn't that a style for black men? Like Lil Wayne. Number one, those are called locks. That's number one. So you don't even know your braids. That's where we're gonna start. Number two, why did you feel the need to say such a comment? And number three, going back to, I feel like the problem with beauty standards of how they sit at the intersex of black women is our looks are always being commented on. You know, someone even asked me, to your question, what is it like to have certain style and be black in the workplace? And I'm like, even if you like our style, just end it with, that color looks nice on you. Not, I like that head wrap, you know, is it a religious thing? Or like, is it culture? Are you from an island? Because now you're feeling ostracized.
Yes, and it's one thing when you have genuine curiosity and you form it in a way of, I care so much that I don't want to offend you, but I really want to know more about the way you dress or how you express yourself. Versus, I feel entitled to know this, give me this information. Or let me see how I can take this and make it my own in a way. It's ultimately, it comes across as disrespect. And what cracks me up the most, I think when they're trying to educate themselves about our hair and like the different styles, specifically when you mentioned braids earlier, I believe. I used to work at a restaurant that will not be named, but it's a pretty popular food chain, and the area I'm in, I would say, is predominantly white as well, where I used to wear my braids to work, just have them up out my way, and it's a protective style so I don't want my hair getting dirty throughout the week. But it's so funny how these styles intrigue them. It's almost like they confuse them sometimes, because I'll never forget, this one lady asked me if my braids were all my hair. I told her no, they're extensions, just to make it plain for them. And she proceeds to ask me if I wash it at all. Can you wash those? And it baffled me so bad, because why does it come across that my hair isn't able to do the same things as your hair? Like, I can't do the same thing with my hair as you do. Like, you wash yours, I wash mine, you know? And it's just so crazy to me how, I guess the thought is just never there before, like before it comes out, there's no processing how it's gonna make me feel. There's no thinking about my feelings past that question. It's just what you wanna know. And I think that's very important that you touched on that, and how in these spaces, we're not really regarded as people sometimes with a lot of similar experiences, but just colors and a story to tell for their entertainment.
It's very much objects, right? Because when you get into the whole idea of like your hair, when you see white people or sometimes people who are not maybe have as much melanated skin to where they are white passing and they have things like braids or certain, you know, maybe they're able to tease their hair, it's just like they're living. Or it's like I do it all the time when you Google someone who is the quote unquote hippie or just kind of wearing your hair free flowing and you see white men with dreads.
Yes.
And it's just like interesting because we had to pass the Crown Act that basically said you can't fire or not hire people because of their hairstyles who are melanated and black. When I kind of thought of the aspect of, you know, which we talk about all the time, especially like black women going to maybe a store or going out real quick or going on the airplane with a bonnet on. And I remember that was such a huge debate in every community. And I really reflected on like, I remember white girls going to school with their hair wet.
Okay.
And I'm just like, well, you know, you going to school with your hair wet because you literally just don't want to do it. And you're just sitting there like, whatever. I'm wearing a bonnet because I have a style. And at the end of the road, I'm actually doing something very important. Right. And I would like my curls to stay intact because Felicia worked very hard on them. Okay, thank you very much. Shout out to Felicia, girl. Like, you already know.
So after everything that we just shared and discussed, what do you really think it would take moving forward to dismantle beauty standards for people of color everywhere?
So I would say with that question, right, there's so many different things that we have to do. I actually have a running list. Okay. I would say first and foremost, it's acknowledging that a lot of our beauty standards are rooted in Eurocentric standards of beauty. Correct. So even something such as our BMI scale is actually based off of white people. I'm not sure exactly which group, but so in general, it's essentially saying me as a black woman or anyone who's a person of color, we might be weighed heavier. But if you're basing that off a group of people who their body mass might be smaller than other communities, it's not, you know, it's not a one size fits all matter.
Definitely not.
So even something which, I mean, I be going on Twitter because I need to, you know, see what the world be offering. I need to come off though because the world be offering a lot of conversation.
A lot of chat.
What that looks like is, I'm sure you've seen this debate with the whole, you could be 150 pounds and look like Meg Thee Stallion. And it's just like, that's an example of a BMI. I am 6'2" and I weigh 160 something pounds. And it's like, as much as I try and I look in the mirror, you know, I be thick with 2 C's. I don't look like Meg. I don't look like Meg.
You can still acknowledge it's 2 different types.
It's 2 different body types, right? And it's like understanding, why does this weight and this number on the scale matter? And that is because we created a system that literally just holds, you have to be this number to be accepted. That is why we have different things such as fat phobia, and a lot of folks on one scale are very much pushing people who are fat or bigger mass away, and a lot of people are internalizing, which I even did, I can't gain weight because other people are not gonna like me.
Right.
I think another point to what it looks like to deconstruct these beauty standards is understanding people make a lot of money. They make so much money off of us not liking ourselves.
Yes, there you go.
Like, beauty is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and what makes me so upset is that the standards are getting younger and younger. Because I ain't gonna hold you, I tell people straight up, like, one day I might have kids, and listen, if I ain't look like that before the baby, we gonna figure out how to bring me back. Because, you know, mama was a stallion back in the day. Or it's like, you know, God forbid something happen, it's like, well, my face didn't look like that before, we gonna bring it back. So for me, I don't have any problems with people getting any body augmentation or plastic surgery. But what I do want a lot of people to understand is your body isn't even fully developed even when you're in your 20s.
Exactly.
And a lot of this body work is being pushed on girls younger and younger and younger. And you're selling them this standard that you should look like this. And I like the way I heard someone say it, where it's like, the name escapes me of who said it, but it was, we are losing a generation of beauty.
Yes,
like, so many people are competing to be these figureheads that they gave us. And I actually like to say, no one's giving their body a chance.
Yes.
I also think that we need to give people of color the grace to actually have real diagnoses. Like, we'll say things like, I just don't like my skin, I don't like my weight. We don't get to have body dysmorphia.
Yes.
We don't get to have eating disorders. A lot of times, you know, studies actually show those are given to cis white women.
Absolutely.
When it's like a lot of people of color, probably if you peeled back and listened to what they're saying, you have body dysmorphia. You are suffering an eating disorder, and how can we give you the help that you need? Like on a clinical level, what does that look like? And maybe like don't go on social media to look for the next waist trainer, the next diet, the next inspo. Yeah, like no, like you actually need clinical help, and I say that in an honest way because I'm very big on mental health advocacy, and I think a lot of people are not recognizing that they actually might be going through, you know, a mental health crisis with their bodies, and they're hurting their bodies. They're not in love with their bodies the way that they should be. But again, people of color don't get those diagnoses. I mean, we can go in depth on that on another day, but we also a lot of times don't even have the medical accessibility to go to the doctors who could give us those diagnoses, because I think that's another key moment here. A lot of it is, oh, I don't like my skin, and I don't like my hair, and I don't like my body. And to me, it's like, well, that seems like a whole lot of things that you don't like. And at some point, there's a transition of just going from, you know, there's this one thing about me, like I don't like the fact that my bags under my eyes always look like I was tired. I look like I was tired since I was 8 years old. And yes, I'm tired, but the world don't gotta know that, right? So that's something where it's like, that's just a feature I don't like. But when you don't like your person, we might have to take this to another level. So I actually think, you know, to the point of what do we have to do for the beauty standards? We need to really sit with people's mental health and really break down to what you're even doing right now. Where did you get these narratives from? How are you upholding them, and who's upholding them in your daily life? Are you around people? Like when I would be around sometimes family and friends coming home to college, that's when I started gaining weight. You know, they would never say go to the gym. The comment would be, oh, so you're not using the school's gym. You know, so it's like these side comments where it's like, well, now mind you, this is the biggest keyword here is the biggest I've ever been in my life. And I was less than, and I'm sitting here like, well, do I need to go to the gym? I actually, when I saw people talking about this Meg Thee Stallion thing, I wanted to show a picture of what someone 6'2" looks like as 150 pounds. And I actually cried when I found the picture, because I'm like, I actually look very sick in this picture. And that was a time when I was trying not to gain weight, because it was like, I should be using the gym. I can't let myself gain more weight. And I actually was struggling with the idea, like, maybe you were like, I didn't want to eat too much food. Like I'd have food and be like, well, I shouldn't eat that much. Because then I might put on weight. We could categorize that as body dysmorphia or eating disorder, but because I'm Black, no one I feel like ever thought it was like, oh, you're just watching your figure.
Or you're just considering your diet a lot more like, oh, she should be doing that though. You want to stay lean, you want to stay fit.
Even when we look at what this looks like outside of women, right? Because if you're talking about people of color, we also got to bring men into this body conversation as well.
Of course.
You know, understanding that I think a lot of men are suffering from eating disorders and body dysmorphia, but we don't label it as such. He's just trying to get strong. He's just out here at the gym. When I was a counselor for youth experiencing homelessness, they were literally passing out at the gym to where I made it a protocol that they at least had to take a granola bar with them when they left, because I was seriously worried for their health. Because I'm like, who told you that you need to drop 50 pounds? And you know, even sports specifically, like that way you like wrestling and you have to be weighted by your class and everything like that.
That's so true.
We don't think about the fact, like, you're literally already giving them this idea that my weight matters to my success. So what does that look like again in people of color when we don't have the access to health? So there's a lot of, again, internal things we need to do. Like, yes, look in the mirror, love yourself, unpack those thoughts. But really on a societal level, we need to understand that we are being made to feel bad about ourselves so we can spend the money to fix the things that don't need any fixing.
Exactly. Wow, that was so beautifully said. So Cheyenne, thank you so much for your time today. That really was everything. You're so well spoken in how you present these topics in your list to dismantle beauty standards in society. And it takes a lot to be vulnerable to the audience. And I just thank you for sharing this conversation with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. And yes, I think it's very important that we dismantle what these beauty constructs are. And I think at the end of the day, understanding that self-expression is just that, the way that you express ourselves, you know, the way that we all are going to walk into this world and exist. And once we push away the noise, push away the billion-dollar companies, push away what is the next trending look on Instagram, it really does come down to, when you look in the mirror, what do you love? And I just want people to show up as that every single day.